Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another video on Tana. This one is a little bit different. So many people at my office have been asking how I use Tana, and often I redirect them to my template, Orbital, which I'll link to in the description on this video. But I also wanted to provide a little longer video looking at Tana sort of out of the box. Basically, when you get Tana, you have a choice to install something like my template, Orbital, to get started. But sometimes it's also good to start simple. And before starting to copy all of the concepts that I use, it might be useful just to go through the basics and see how Tana works. So this is going to be a slightly different video where I will go and see this clean copy of Tana. It's actually still on the wrong date. Let's go to today. I created a new account. Basically, this is a clean account. I think it does have Tana Core enabled, if I am correct. Let's see, manage my account. Yeah. So I do have some AI credits, but we'll see how many of these things actually come up. So I'll try and explain it like I would if someone is sitting next to me. So there's a lot of stuff here that is also new to me because obviously I've been using Tana for well over a year. So this is also my first impression of the standard set of stuff that comes with it. And I'll reflect a little bit on the stuff that I would change in order to get up and running. Now, normally I would advise you to read all of these things. I guess there's also some nice videos here, like how to get started. Hello, Braga. And let's click these away because I know all of these things and I'll try and explain them all from the get-go. So when you start, you see the today page, and actually the today page is a very important part. And in my own template, I've built a lot of stuff actually on the today page. And that's, I think, the power of Tana, that you can sort of customize the experience to what you want. Now, for me, my role consists a lot about many meetings and about tasks that sort of like gather during those meetings. And I see that Tana does come pre-installed with quite a bit of these things. So there's a list of super tags, nicely colored. So meeting, brainstorm, article, memo, and daily prep. Now, I don't know most of these. So let's have a look at, for instance, meeting. So when you click on them, you get this standard search, but I will go and see in the configure, like how does this actually look like? And if you go into content template, you can see that, okay, so a meeting has a date, some attendees, a meeting link, event status, what's in there? Okay, declined, etc. Transcript and tasks. So by default, these things would flow from something like your Google Calendar. Now at work, we unfortunately don't use Google, so we're a little bit stuck by either manually making meetings or by using something that I've built. If you're on macOS, then you have a little app called Event Link, which you can download from the App Store and link to Tana. I'm not going to go into the specifics of it here, but suffice it to say that this allows you to import all of your events from stuff like Outlook, or use multiple other calendars that you would like. Anything that works on macOS is also supported there. For now, let's get into it, because what I usually do is just invite people to start by creating their first super tag. And a super tag is just basically like a container, an object. So in this case, I have many meetings. In this case, for instance, I will have a meeting between me and Peter. And let's go into that meeting by clicking here. And then we get some helpful information that there is a meeting agent, which is really cool, because if you put the meeting link in there, then it will automatically join your meeting and do some transcription and even suggest some tasks from the meeting. So for now, I want to have a one-on-one meeting, and this is very similar to how I started Tana. At the beginning of the day, I would actually go into my day page. And what I really like is to have something like like a little bit of more organizational structure. So I will create a field, meetings, and I'll drag this in there. But now, if you look carefully, if I go to the previous day, of course, that field is not there. So we want to get this into the template. So let's right click there and add it to the template. And now if we go there, you can see that nicely, all of this stuff will be on every day from now on. I just like to have this sort of structure here, but it's not required. You can put everything in there. So let's jump into this. And in this case, it's going to be a meeting between me and Peter. So there's some standard people in here, like a person. And let's make myself, let's see, this is one of my coworkers, and you can see, hey, we'll tag it as a person. Now, the advantage of tagging stuff as a person means that you can find them later. In my personal system, actually, I made a distinction between a person and a coworker, because sometimes I have stuff like books, and I want to be able to say like, hey, there's not that much like occasion that, for instance, a person, any person will show up in my meeting, and that will make the search a little bit better. But if you look now, since this one is now in here, one of the things that I tend to do is move this to my library. And now you can actually select Peter here, because before I just created the node Peter and it was here. You don't really need to do this, because in the next day, you can always select Peter. And this is sort of like this basic structure. You're creating objects, like in this case, a meeting and an attendee. And then generally I would just go ahead and start doing my meeting notes, like test. And then at some point during my meeting day, I would find a task. Now, you can do multiple ways, and that's really up to you how you do it. So there's a list of tasks. And in this case, I guess you can, these are like pre-installed tasks. But generally what I do is actually just write the tasks in between of the meeting notes. So I'll do something like a task, and I will say during the meeting I found, okay, say write the budget report. Now, this is part of the basic structure. So I will create several meetings. So for instance, I have another meeting with Mark. I will tag it again as a meeting. I will go into the meeting. I will add my attendee. In this case, Mark. That's another one of my coworkers, Mark Winning, and so on and so on. Now, if you have the calendar integration, either through Event Link or through Google, these things will be auto-filled. But in the beginning, it might not be a bad idea to actually just create these things as you go along. Now, one of the things you notice is that the open task that I just created now shows up here. And that's kind of cool, because like it automatically sort of shows you the power that, hey, I now have a task. It automatically shows up on my dashboard for today. It's in my open tasks. And if I click it, one of the cool parts is that it's also easy to find out, hey, where did this task actually come from? So in this case, I can see that, hey, it was part of the meeting between Andre and Peter. Because one of the things that I do a lot is that I write some sort of task, and it's like half baked. I do this for him. And then later on, I'm looking at that task and I go, what the hell was this supposed to mean? And being able to click through the context where that task was created is really, really helpful. Now, there's some stuff like here, like personally, I love Tana that I am able to sort of customize all of these things. And it's really nice that the basic setup that you actually have here is very workable. But let's dive into the customization a bit. So first of all, I would like these people not to be people, but coworkers. So in this case, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, hey, Peter Leppers is not a person. He is a coworker. So let's create and apply coworker. And in this case, it says create because that super tag doesn't exist yet. And in this case, it will add person and coworker. Now, if you click here, it will remove the person. And you can see all of those fields are actually removed. One of the things that makes Tana powerful again is that this coworker is basically a person. So if you right click here and you just configure, go to building blocks and extend another, and then we're going to just make this a person, and we're back to where we started. And now every coworker is also a person. So if you have any kind of development background, this will look very familiar to you because basically it's objects. And let's also go here and say, hey, Mark is also a coworker. And now we can simply remove the person here and be done with it. The cool part is here in this search, you can see both people and coworkers here. And they're both found by the attendees because we've made the coworker extend a person. Now, in this case, this is my first small customization. The next part is that tasks, for me, in my mind, everything is a to-do. So in my things like, hey, I would prefer this to be renamed to a to-do. So let's configure it and let's name it a to-do. It just works better in my mind. And for me also, I like to-dos to be a little bit more demure. So let's remove the color here. And in this case, now we can see the color also approved here. And it's much easier for me because I'm slowly making these things my own. Let's configure things. Somehow in my mind, a person is always blue. And in my mind, the meeting is something like yellow or orange or something like that. Let's make it orange for this time. Let's do this one. Yellow. There we go. And I also I love having everything downcased. And again, this is whatever you prefer. So now we have a little bit of customization here for meetings and for these other things. Now, since we're also seeing a lot of stuff like here, open tasks, and that's kind of interesting. These are all of the tasks that are currently open. And let's click some of these away because I've already joined the Tana community. I actually have the Tana for Desktop app, but this is my other account. I've written a note on the Today page. Let's done that. I've clicked the pink box with the hashtag. Oh yeah, but I changed the color, so that's no longer relevant. And the pink bullet. So, okay. So this is the only task we're actually doing here. One of the things that I really have, like in my normal system, I have quite a bit of tasks and I don't want all of my open tasks. Like I really like to have a sort of set of tasks that I have selected that I want to work on for this week. But I do want to have this sort of search of open tasks. Let's go in there and just Command C, and we're going to copy it somewhere and pin it. Let's see, maybe we can actually go here. We're going to do this. We're going to click here and we're going to pin this note or somewhere. Let's take this open task query. Let's put it somewhere where let's see here, open tasks. And we're going to pin this note. Is that possible? Where is it? Hey, maybe it's not. Pin to sidebar. There we go. So now this search is over here, open tasks. And we're also going to do something. We're going to bring it over here. So every time it will keep in our main document. We're also going to delete all of the demo content because we want a clean slate. And that makes that all of the other tasks are gone. Oh, something interesting happened here. Quite sure why that is. It seems to be a bug in Tana. And so I duplicated it. I just removed it. If we look here, we can see that, hey, this is the open tasks, but we're going to change that to tasks of this week. And let's see how we're going to do that. So my basic system is that every day I will go and create all of my meetings. I do that automatically through importing it, but you are very welcome to do it using sort of like a manual system. I also created some other types of meetings. So in this case, this is like a one-on-one meeting. So let's create similar like a coworker. Let's go and tag this as a one-on-one meeting. Let's tag this one as the same one-on-one meeting. And we're going to do exactly the same that we did before. We're going to configure this tag, go to building blocks, and make a one-on-one meeting is a type of meeting. And again, we're going to color it yellow. So here, if we remove these, now these are one-on-one meetings. Now, a super tag is sort of like something like a thing, like a person or a type of thing, a coworker. It's a little bit different than normal with tags, like a theme or something is more a type of object. So a to-do or a one-on-one. And by having these specifically as one-on-one, then I am also able to create a list of just my one-on-one meetings. So for instance, if I wanted to create a list of one-on-one meetings at all of them, I could simply say search, or I think find nodes with tag one-on-one as list. And there we go. That's a list of all of the one-on-one meetings. Now, of course, it's not very interesting now because basically there's 2 and there were all the other, but this is really a superpower, as we'll see a little bit later on. So of course, there's also some team meetings. So let's also create one of these. One of our meetings is, for instance, a NADAP healthcare core. Oh, spelling. NADAP healthcare core. We'll tag that as a meeting. And this is now a very clear indication that this is actually a different type of meeting than the one-on-one. And for instance, there's going to be a couple of attendees. So one of my other, here we can see, hey, this is asking me to tag it as a person. But actually, whenever I have meetings, it's generally with coworkers. So let's go in and change that. So first of all, I can finish this by just tagging it as a coworker. And there we go. But if we want this attendees field to only search for key coworkers, we can go in, configure the field. And here you can see options from a specific super tag and it's person. And I want to change that to coworker. And now next time when I'm adding a name that I don't know, it will simply ask me to create it. So for instance, another one of my coworkers, now it says, hey, tag this as a coworker, and it's much easier because it auto-suggests it. Now, I'm showing you like a cross-section of many of the features of Tana, so I'm hoping that it's sort of clear. But because I'm slowly building up to basically the system that I use every day. I now have a couple of meetings. We have a single task, which is maybe not the best one. But let's also expand that a little bit because this is just one type of task. So in this case, it's a normal task. But sometimes I also, like during a meeting, something might come up and someone is asking me, hey, can you discuss that with the next time you're with Kevin, for instance, discuss it. So in this case, we're going to say like, hey, discuss the budget report template with Kevin. So first of all, what you're going to say here is that if I do an @ symbol, I will start searching for everything that I've ever tagged in Tana. And that's very helpful because in this case, I will be able to, one, quickly get the spelling of Kevin's and his full and last name right. But it also links this thing to Kevin in some sort of way. So it's easy to find everything where, for instance, Kevin is mentioned. This is basically one of the advantages of Tana being a big knowledge graph. But of course, this is not targeted yet. So we're going to do this as a discuss. And there we go. It's already a to discuss super tag. And let's do that one. And if we go and configure this one, because again, I'm a little bit particular and I like just naming this to discuss. We're also going to remove the color here. And you already see that here, this discuss is probably some sort of task or something like that. Oh, it's special. It's not a to-do. So I actually want to extend this to also be a to-do, but let's for now not. In this case, let's keep it as a separate one. And what's cool here is since I mentioned this as a to discuss, it shows up as something to discuss. Why does it show up here? It says discuss during the meeting. It will appear in that meeting. That's an interesting one. And here discuss with, it will appear on that person's page. Oh, that's also interesting. So this is the basic set that Tana comes with. I think I would actually do it a little bit differently. But in this case, let's say we're gonna discuss this with Kevin. And what I would hope is that it would show up not on Kevin's page, but the next time I have a meeting with Kevin. So let's see if we can get that to work. Andre and Kevin. And then we see if we select Kevin here, if we go into the meeting, do we see it? No, we do not see it. So that's something I would really like, because I don't always know in which meeting I'm going to discuss something. I would like to show up any points that I marked as discussed with if there's a meeting with that person, a one-on-one meeting. So let's see if we can go in and actually ensure that this is working as intended. So we're going to go into configure, and here we're going to go into a little bit more advanced, because under advanced, if you scroll all the way down, there's some shortcuts and we see related content. Okay, but it's in the one-on-one meeting. Let's go into the meeting configure, because this thing I think comes from, yeah, there we go, to discuss. So here we see a search, and if we edit the search, and there you go into a little bit more complicated stuff. But I think it is important that you get a little bit of a grasp, and let's make this a little bit bigger, how this actually works. So here's a search of everything that has the discuss tag, where either the discuss during is same as the parent, which in this case is the meeting, or nothing else. So what I actually want is if the discuss with, this one, and that's the field, if you remember, is the same as the parent dot the attendees. So in this case, if the discuss with is the same as the attendees field here, show it up here. Now, you don't need to grasp how all of this is working. I'm just showing you how these searches actually work. And the cool part here is that whenever I create a meeting with Kevin, all of the points that I've marked as discussed with Kevin will show up here. Now there's some other stuff here that's actually very interesting. So you can see there's Kevin Vivier and some stuff underneath here. And you can actually get that and customize that. So again, we're going to go into configure tag. We're going to go to configure the meeting. Configure meeting. Going to go to the search to discuss with, and we have this view options here. And let's see what we have. Display. And we see, hey, these two fields are being displayed, and we're going to remove them to make it all a little bit cleaner. So now we're getting closer and closer, because I have this nice one-on-one meeting. And one of the things I see is that I'm always typing Andre Kevin. And this is very similar to what I do in my calendar. But I'm a little bit of a lazy person and would love this to be sort of like pre-filled and not always with Andre Kevin. Perhaps I would want to have something slightly different. So if we go into the configure tag and under advanced options, you also see build title from fields. And again, what I like is one-on-one with, and then we have a special notation here, as is explained in the top part here, the dollar and then attendees, which is the field name. And then we auto change this into the name of all one-on-ones. The cool part is if we go back, you can see that everything now has this very nice standardized thing, which I cannot edit anymore, which is exactly what I want. So if I just change, for instance, this to Mark, it will change to a one-on-one with Mark. But since we already had that one, let's go back into the Kevin one. So we've shown a couple of things. So tasks, to-dos, and we're slowly making the system our own. And again, I think the best part of Tana is that you can slowly sort of like shape it just the way you want it. So let's say it's the next day. And we start again, and we're gonna create a couple of meetings. So first of all, here, if we're manually creating meetings, that would be nice if this is already a meeting, if it's empty. So we can go in and we're going to configure this field, and we're going to say the field type is an options from SuperTag, and it's a type of meeting. There we go. We go back, and now it will search for everything, but I can also just do this is a one-on-one with, well, doesn't really matter that much. Let's not name it, but we're going to tag it as a one-on-one meeting in this case. And what you see here is that it auto says, hey, one-on-one with the attendees, because I haven't filled that yet. And again, we're going to sit with Peter today. So now it's already a little bit easier to sort of make these things as you go along. And it's easier and easier and easier. Now, as promised, let's move into these open tasks and change that a bit, because we have the open tasks here, and we also have this welcome to Tana, and I'm going to unpin some of these things because I would like this to be just the stuff that I want. So again, these things have to go. There we go. Now I have a clean sidebar. Next up, what I'm going to do is show you a little bit how I sort of handle my routine. So basically, I have two very important loops. Every morning I do something, and every week I do something. And what I do in the week is actually very simple. So in the week, there's a couple of things. So by default, apparently now it has a schedule and a couple of days. And if you go and you configure the tag, you notice that the week is also just another super tag, which you can sort of mold to whatever you want. And what I want is to be able to have a couple of things automatically in there. So the first part is we have this open tasks sort of like search. And if we do add open tasks, then we see, hey, this node, let's put it there. And now the benefit here is that every week we'll have this list of open tasks. And that is very important for me, because at the start of the week, I sort of like look through all of my tasks, and let's create a little bit more tasks because now it's a little bit bare. So this is not a task because this is a discuss point. So we're going to add another to do, like write TPA report. Let's do another task. To do, what shall we do? Pick up the dry cleaning. I never do that, but it's a very good option. We also see there's some stuff in here, like a status, so a backlog status, and it has some other things like in progress, backlog, and done. Now again, these are just examples, and you can shape Tana to whatever way you want them. So for me, these things don't really work for me. So if I go in and configure the tag and go to the content template, we see these things like a status and a due date. And I don't really work with due dates, so we're going to remove it. And I don't really care about the status either. So let's remove that. Now you see that since these have status assigned to it, you can mold these things, but we can just remove these things. It doesn't really matter that much. But we see that the list of these things is actually growing. Now, I do want to show a little bit of advanced use case, because for me, sort of customizing Tana to look like I want it to look is super important. And I have this app called Nucleo, and it's great for customizing Tana to look just the way that I want it to look like. So if you go to outline, and for instance, we have the meeting, I want meetings to have some sort of cool icon. So what I do is, first of all, I'm going to take the color of this thing, so it's a little bit the same. I'm going to paste that color here. And then I'm going to search through Nucleo UI. Let's see, calendar. I think that might be, I think something like this would look very cool. This one. And in order to do that, I go and I configure this tag. I go to configure super tag, and then I'm going to debug super tag. we have this whole field here, which you can fully ignore. And there's an icon, and I'm just going to drag that icon right in there. And this is the first step. What you can see here is that now my meetings have a nice little icon. And doesn't that look a lot better? But we can also see, hey, only the one-on-ones have that. So maybe we should have had a different icon for a one-on-one or for another one. But for now, that's not. Let's do this again. Command K, debug super tag. We have the icon field underneath here. Gonna drag this one. And again, I cannot drag and drop it in there. And you see, hey, the icon appears. Next up, tasks. So we're already starting to become much better. So here we have a list of open tasks, and I would be a lot happier. There's some stuff left over. Let's remove that. If these also have a cool icon. So let's configure it. In this case, let's pick the color. It's going to be boring and gray. Paste that in there. Paste it in there. Gonna do a task or a to-do. And I spend a lot of time actually on this in trying to find the perfect icon for something, as you might imagine. But after a while, you do get a little bit better about what you actually like. So in this case, let's do debug again, and we'll go into the icon field. And again, you don't need to do this, but for me, customizing the system to look just the way I want it to look is super important, and it makes it so much more scannable. So next up, we have a schedule here, but there's nothing on my schedule, and that's probably because I'm not using this sort of like Google integration. So for me, it doesn't add that much value. So let's go and configure it under advanced. And we have all the way here, we have the schedule, and we're just gonna remove it, and it's gone. And again, I think this is the power of being able to customize Tana to be just the way I want to. So at the start of every week, and again, here I'm being a little bit more like, for me, my weeks need to be green, and I love it if it's downcased. So I'm slowly changing it the way. So there's a couple of things that I do. So first off, you saw me add this open tasks sort of like search in there. There's a couple of other questions that I ask myself. So I have basically a checklist. So in order to have a standard checklist that I do every week, there's a couple of things that I do. So what do I do every week? First of all, I select tasks for the week. So that's step one. Then the next thing I do is I go through my calendar. And then the third thing I do is I reflect on last week. And that's about it. So there's 3 things that every week I really want to do. So in order to do this, we're going to remove this one because it doesn't show up here. That's interesting. Why doesn't it show up? Probably because let's remove this week. And the cool part is that it will be regenerated. And then here it is, nicely built. And now we have a week tag with a nice checklist, which shows a progress bar saying like, okay, select the tasks for the week. So what I do is I open my open tasks, which is now empty, which is interesting because I threw away all of my days. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Let's undo. And that's another very cool part of Tana. So now we're back here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just remove this one and we're going to add it again. And then that has the same effect. As you can see, this is sort of like, you see these little paper cuts here. It didn't show up like right away. And I think this is also why Tana is still under development. It would be amazing if I make these changes and they just show up. Because in many cases, you can just go back and just change things. So now we're back to the same situation. We have no thrown things away. And the first thing I'm going to do is uncollapse this one. And what I really like is if I shift tab, I actually put them on my list for that week. So let's say that I'm only going to do the pick up the dry cleaning and the budget report for this week. And then I'm done. And you can see, hey, now normally I would go through my calendar, and what often happens is that I still find a couple of other tasks I need to do. So I just prepare for the Friday session. I need to make presentation. So this helps me be sort of like more prepared. Generally, I do my week start at the start of the week on the Monday very early, which generally makes me able to be prepared for most of the stuff on my calendar. And I also reflect on the last week, and I generally just put it underneath here. So in this case, I would write down like, hey, what did I do last week? How did I perceive it? Did I feel busy? Did I feel productive? And it really helps sort of like look back and sort of like write my own little story about it. I don't do it every week, but generally I try to do it as much as I can. And once I'm done, then I have the satisfaction of a 3 out of 3 checklist, and I'll go and do my day. Now, one of the things here you can see is that this will show all of the open tasks. And I actually don't want that. I want all of the tasks that are in my week. So in this case, we're going to create a little search to look at the tasks in this week. So you can press the question mark to create a search node. And what we want to do is search through the week, in this case, the parent. And here we have a lot of these search operators. And I think the child of, so it needs to be part of the child of the parent. And I think if I run this, then I get a lot of things. I don't get a lot of things, only takes note references. Oh, let's see, maybe it's a different one. Search operator, let's see, parents, descendants, maybe that one. That should be a lot of stuff, yes. So that means everything that is descendant of today, and that's actually not what I wanted. So let's remove that one. Let's say grandparents' descendants. And that should do an even bigger list because it's everything underneath the week 15. But we don't want everything. We want only the things that are to-dos. So these should be all of the to-dos that are either in the week or have created in one of these things. And that's actually the search I have this week's tasks. Let's click clean up. And what we do here is we're going to add this to related content and this week's tasks. We're going to go into the configure the task, advanced options, and we're going to remove the open tasks here. Well, this week's task doesn't look that great like this. Let's just make it this week. I think that is clear enough. And it should show these things. Now, if we see now, you can still see everything, because what I actually like about this one is that as I gather more tasks during the week, they auto show up here. So it's not just what I've picked, but it's what I have selected. If we go to the next week, so for Monday, we can see, hey, the week is empty. In that week, if I now, for instance, do the same, like the Friday session or the dry cleaning, you can see this reference added to parent. It's shift tab. It's in my week 16. If I now go to the Monday, it should show up there. Let's see. Oh, I refreshed. And there we go. Nothing. Interesting. Let's go in there. Let's see what I did wrong. And let's go and change this one. I think I know. This is still, I'm hoping Tana would fix this eventually, because it's a little bit too complicated, these things, because it needs to be this one with references. And there we go. For now, just copy these things. Basically, it means that something that wasn't created in that week, but just copied in that week, also shows up in the search. Now I can understand that especially this part feels a little bit sort of like overwhelming in the beginning. And again, you don't need to do it, because especially in the beginning, it's mostly about starting to get into the vibe of note taking and actually taking notes and making sure you're tagging stuff. And then as you become more comfortable with Tana, it will get easier and easier. And I also highly recommend joining their Slack community, just like the to-do set that was in the thing we clicked away before, because it makes it so much easier to just ask a little question. Their support and the community is very, very good. So it's very easy to sort of like get help in many of these issues. And then you can slowly but surely become more and more capable. And if you look at most of the stuff that we have now, I think this is the core of my system. In the start of the week, I go through my checklist, I pick the stuff that I want to do that week, and then on the day, I go through what I want to do. Now, we want to go a little bit further because I want to have like a little bit, like I think an hour video. We can do a little bit more. So one of the things that I use a lot, and I know that Tana is not the biggest fan of it, is using the inbox. Now, I'm not quite sure if I can find it because, there it is. It's actually hidden, but I really like it because the inbox is my sort of like spot where everything goes that I haven't really sort of like processed yet. And for me, that is just how my brain works. I like everything to flow into a specific area. And then when I have the headspace, then I will actually do with it what I want. The inbox is a special thing, and we're going to add it to the day configure. So let's say here, let's do this one. Change that to low caps. We're going to go in here and we're going to put the inbox. See, there. Now, unsurprisingly, now it is fully empty. Nothing in the inbox. But when you download the app, the mobile app, you can choose to send stuff either to your today page or to the inbox. The problem with sending it to the today page is that often on the next day, I don't check the previous day. So I really like that if I have something and I capture it on the different way, it will be in the inbox. Now, generally, I will add stuff in here. And once you add something in here, you also see it appear here. So as soon as you start using the inbox, it will also show up here. And for now, generally what I do is I see something that I've captured through the app. It might be a URL, it might be task or a voice memo or whatever it is. And I would then either move it to my today page or do something else with it. So this is basically the way that I use it. But I like having the inbox here. The other part, and we've not really done this because we've been manually creating sort of like the meeting. And as you can see here, the date is empty. So let's set the date. And in this case, now it's today. My meeting started at 9 and it ended at 10. And now, generally, this is done automatically if you use the Google integration or if you use EventLink. But if you do it manually, it will be very helpful to show at least that you have these meetings on a specific day. So let's add them to today. There we go. Okay, let's add these all to today. And then we're going to do another search. In this case, we're going to search for all the meetings. So let's search for meeting. There we go. Where the date, this one, is today. I think that is field value for relative date, today. And again, the search query is a little bit complicated, but here we have all of the meetings for today. The cool part is that you can set the view as a calendar. And here you go. Let's set it as a day. And now you can also see that these are not scheduled. So let's this was Mark, and then Kevin, and the healthcare core. And I also want this to move to my related content. So now I have a very nice overview of my inbox, stuff I want to do this week, and my today. And here you can drag stuff around. One of the cool parts is generally you can also drag other things in there. So here you can just drag a to-do item in there and it's automatically plannable. Let's delete this one again. Oh, interesting. I still haven't fixed that. So in order to get this out, let's see. How do you get this out? This is also an interesting part. Let's put it back into a list and then we can remove it. Okay, because it's a meeting in the search. Okay. Again, these things are sometimes a little bit strange in the sense that dragging it in there now added a meeting sort of tag, which I didn't really realize. We also see some other stuff here. So for instance, there's a lot of hours here. And if we go to the configure, there's a couple of things. So first of all, I would like my week list to be the last one, this one, and I want to configure this one, the day length. And I don't start meetings before 9, and I don't have meetings after 6. So that makes it a little bit more manageable. Let's do that one. And I think this one, you have to remove it and then restart it. And we'll want to hide this one. Yes, I think that's about it. And then we have a nice calendar view also to next of it. Now the cool part again is that much of this stuff is so customizable. And again, just start with these little things. Now, in the beginning, we also showed that you can sort of like link and reference things in the middle of things. So in this case, when I click on Kevin, the cool part here is that you can see that these are all of the meetings I've had with Kevin. And these are all of the to-dos where I've mentioned Kevin or other sort of references. And this is really nice that after a while, this becomes really, really powerful. Let's add one more thing because I like my icons. And in this case, we also see that, that Kevin and Peter do not have an icon yet. So let's do this again. Pick my color. And let's take the color there. And we're going to take a person. And we're going to paste this one in here. And it's nice and blue. We're going to configure. We're going to command debug. And let's go to the icon field. There we go. And which icon shall we take? Again, I'm very bad at accepting the first icon there, but let's just drop this one in there. Let's see if it looks good. And not really. So this one isn't the best fit. How about this one? Or maybe another head-like icon. Let's see. A person. This one's already better, I think. Let's take this one out. This one in. It looks the same, but it's a little bit smaller, so it will probably be, yeah, it's not perfect, but again, good enough, I think, for now. I highly recommend downloading the Nucleo app so you can customize this to look exactly like you want it to. Now, there's so much more in Tana, but I think this gives you a short and a brief overview of how you can actually use Tana in a super simple way. And especially the discuss with that auto shows up here. Those are really like superpowers. So I go through my day making notes and slowly tweaking things in Tana. I capture a lot using mobile app, and all of those stuff I send automatically to my inbox. So the next day when I arrive, I see these things and I either put them in this week or I handle them. And this is my main sort of like system. If you want to look at the system that I actually use day to day, I highly recommend you to check out Orbital. I think we're at version 1.2 and you can see both how I set up all of these searches, or if you don't feel like doing all the searches yourself, you can basically use my system as is with all of the icons already set the way I like them. And of course, you can learn how to tweak it your way. I hope this was useful. If you have any specific questions, I would recommend going to the Tana Slack. You can also put a comment under the YouTube video, but it's a little bit harder for me to track, so I'm a little bit more responsive on their Slack. So that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it, and till the next video.